It's the last session of the day. I'm going to do a little wrap up of what we've been talking about today, somehow trying my best to summarise all of the ideas that have been said only just this afternoon. I feel like I've been here for 3 days and it's only really been a couple of hours before we get into the drinks. So we started with Professor Chris Speed, who co-wrote his introduction with AI. I'm not entirely sure how successful the AI was in helping him tell this story, but really interesting kind of commentary around misrepresentation when we start using these kind of technologies. We then went straight into Carly Kind from the Ada Lovelace Institute and some of the themes that she had around the creative industries helping imagine future technologies in the same way Star Trek and sci-fi has helped push scientists and engineers about the future possible, and also how can creatives help mitigate some of the negatives of AI. I thought it was really interesting she was talking about creators having a responsibility to ensure representations aren't over-sexualized or gendered when you're looking at things like, for instance, Alexa. And it brought up questions for me around this idea of what is the difference between responsibility and the role of the creative industries when we're talking about artificial intelligence and technologies as a whole. I think those two words are slightly different and needs a little bit more pondering. We then went into the Just a Member of the Band session, which was basically taking this idea that, AI and robotics replacing us, and how can we actually reframe them as an aid to what it is that we do as creative, as humans, as members of society. We had Reaps One showing us about the power of voice, and using his idea of sort of the AI as the opponent, sort of battling against AI, or using the sort of AI version of himself to learn more about the abilities of his voice, was really intriguing. Parry talking about AI writing better copy. I do a bit of copywriting on the side, being a journalist, so I'm a little bit freaked out about that. But really interesting kind of, again, that what does it mean to write things that people like or people are going to click on, and how do we find those patterns? And of course, that was also explored later on with Chinooki with her kind of work around beauty. Bringing up again questions around, how can AI actually adapt to changing taste? What does beauty really mean across the ages? If we sort of define beauty using AI, what happens if that changes in 5 years' time as a result of that definition? But what kind of struck me is this idea of, again, if we're talking about AI being a member of the band, does AI help refine our thinking around questions such as, what does beauty mean? Again, we also had Mikael, who was talking a little bit about what they are doing too around the sort of co-creation and also analysis of what it means to have something like a script be successful. Interesting kind of questions in the slide. I think that's probably one of the more controversial sessions of the day around, is commercial value really the best way to analyse whether a script is good or bad? One of the comments I thought was great was, deep story is the answers to writer's block. Yikes. I think I maybe agree on that one too. We then kind of went on to the panel, which was, and the award goes to, and again, that was a really interesting kind of pondering around who is it that you credit if an AI has played a role in actually being a part of the creation process, of whether that's a script or a book or whatever else. It was one of the themes on in the slide as well. How can who owns the IP in deep fakery, and who owns the IP when it comes to taking inspiration from various different places? After that, we went on to, oh my goodness, my notes has got a whole load of arrows everywhere because this has been so incredibly inspiring. After that, I think we went on to Pip, if I'm correct, talking about linguistic capitalism, this idea of translating ideas from what we really meant as intention into this kind of, I don't know, what's more commercially viable. I thought that was really interesting when you put in the word sexist and it changed to sexier, because you can make money off sexier content as opposed to, if you're asking about sexist, maybe is that all about advocacy as opposed to porn, for instance? Really kind of interesting. We then had Jake, who was talking about queering data. One of the biggest themes that was discussed today was around bias and diversity and reinforcing bias in existing data sets. So his kind of quest to kind of rethink what these data sets look like really struck me as a project that I think more of us need to be pondering upon and pushing up when we see it being done. After that, we had the panel here, which I thought was just totally fascinating. Think about this new storytelling structures, but as Adam kind of introduced right at the start, this idea of different kind of storytelling structures is as old as Robert Louis Stevenson and before. Having Abigail talking about how literary studies can actually be shifted by using AI as a tool. Guy talking about reformatting of stories. I was really intrigued when he said they used the word player to talk about the people that were interacting with the system. And it made me ponder this idea of when we use words like user or consumer or customer or service user or patient, player, reader, audience, what does that mean when we use these words around the intention of what we're creating things for? That was one of my little self-ponderings when I was listening. Ian brought it right back to responsibility versus the role, again, of the creative industries. Why is it we're creating things? What is it for? One of the interesting points as well was this idea of innovation within genre, because isn't that the whole point of great work? It's you take something that's a little bit expected, you know you're going in for a horror story, or you're going in for a thriller, but the joy of an amazing piece of work is the fact that it subverts somewhere. There's an algorithm, as it were, for storytelling, but then some form of innovation within it. Can AI play a role in helping us create better work by knowing what that algorithm looks like? Idea everything bad is good for you. Is AI really all that bad? Yes, no. I think the answer is probably nuance, shall we say. And Osta obviously rounding us off with a little bit of the way that she's using computer and maybe in the future AI in the way that she does theatre. Well, I hope that was an all right summary of what's happened, but you can come challenge me later on. If not, I think it's so difficult to try and somehow capture everything that's gone on today. We're now going to move on to some drinks and some canapes. UKRI has kindly supported Beyond, and they're going to be providing us with these snacks and drinks, giving us a bit of time to do a little bit more viewing of the posters, of the showcase, of the artist's work. If you've not already had a chance to do that, grab yourself a drink. And about 6 p.m, Andrew Chitty, who's the UKRI Challenge Director for both the Creative Industries Cluster and the Audience of the Future programme, he's going to do a little overview and an exciting update, I'm told. And he's basically representing the UK government's largest ever investment in the creative industry, so don't miss that. It's not long till 6, so do stick around, get a drink, have some chats, and see what Andrew's got to say. Last thing to say, thank you so much to the speakers, the artists, the showcase contributors, the poster academics, and thank you guys to you for coming, for engaging, for asking so many questions on Slido. I'm very excited to see you guys here at 9:30 a.m. sharp for the first session tomorrow morning, but until then, please do enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.